Hello and welcome to the Modern Fairy Sightings podcast, where we listen to people's fairy encounters. But take heed, we're not talking about winged Tinkerbells here. These are real fairies, real encounters that took people like you and I by surprise. Stay a while and hear their stories. My name is Jo Hickey Hall, and I'm a folklore researcher. Dear listener, how are you? It is very cold indeed in Bristol, and like everyone else around here, we're layering up both outside and inside the home to keep warm. Winter walks are bracing, but still very enjoyable, and I hope you're finding time to spend these moments with loved ones too. I'm very happy to bring you this great chat with Paul and Charla Devereux. Paul, an author and long-time researcher into the study of sound at ancient places, ancient and traditional lifeways, the anthropology and archaeology of consciousness, sacred sites and landscapes, and general consciousness studies including psi phenomena and unusual geophysical events. Paul and Charla had their own very unexpected fairy encounter some years ago when they were on a research trip in Ireland. It's the first time they've spoken together publicly about their multiple witness sighting. And this episode is also available as a video on the Modern Fairy Sightings YouTube channel. So please hop on there and subscribe. I'll be loading more videos when I have time. And please do also rate, review and subscribe on the app that you're listening to this podcast on. That all really helps. Thank you. Thanks as always to my amazing curious crew of patrons over at Patreon who support my research and without whom this podcast would not exist. We're preparing for some upcoming events. There are 2 fairy tea ritual workshops in January, one on the 7th, Saturday the 7th in the morning, and one on Saturday the 14th in the evening with Todd Grube. You will have heard him talk about his amazing experiences a couple of times before on the podcast. There's also a 6-week shamanic qigong course with Todd, suitable for all levels, starting at the end of January. Legend says it was created by the Chinese nature spirits. It's an easy to learn but very powerful practice that opens the energy body, heals the yin and yang aspects of the body, and connects you to the angelic heavens. It consists of both standing movements and sitting. The tea ceremony is open to everybody, and you can find details at scarletofthefey.com. The Qigong is exclusive to members of the Patreon group, so please do join us there for lots of bonus episodes, community and events, as well as supporting this show. In a couple of weeks' time, I'll be releasing a chat with a man who had a Santa Claus experience. Now, after a discussion with people on my Facebook group, it turns out that these events are not as rare as you might think, at least as much as I thought. More to come on that. As always, do get in touch if you'd like to tell me about your story at scarletofthefey.com. Enjoy this wonderful chat, and a huge thanks to Paul and Charla for sharing their experience with us. Much love. Time to Welcome to the Modern Fairy Sightings podcast. I am absolutely thrilled to have as my guests Paul Devereux and his wife Charla Devereux. Really, really excited to have you both here. Paul probably needs no introduction to the podcast's watchers and listeners, but he is an author, I think, of almost 30 books now, a researcher of geophysical phenomena and consciousness studies, and the geophysical aspect Paul's been looking at that since the 1970s. Paul is a lecturer as well as an artist and photographer. He is also the co-founder and managing director of Time and Mind, the Journal of Archaeology, Consciousness and Culture. He has been a research associate at the Royal College of Art and a research fellow at the International Consciousness Research Lab at Princeton University. and also the director of the Dragon Project. And Charla is also an author of a number of books in the well-being area, including aromatherapy, meditation, visualization particularly, and lucid dreaming, which is really interesting. And Charla, you also take part and probably co-direct the Dragon Project too. So, and of course, you've been a researcher alongside Paul for many years now, and part of that whole research. So welcome to you both.
Hi, thank you. Nice to be here.
Really nice to have you here. The two of you have been researching these areas, really interesting areas from way back. And I would really love to know how you met, because I think I remember reading that was a really, you met in a really interesting way.
Well, I came on a tour, which I never really did before. I like to travel alone or maybe just with a friend. But circumstance happened, and I won't go into that long drama of it. But I ended up on a tour coming in 1984, coming over here to Britain, which was never really on my bucket list of places to go, I have to admit. And Paul was one of the tour guides. And basically, I mean, we obviously met at the airport. There were about 30 people. But one of the places that we went on our tour was Dartmoor, some of the rows in Dartmoor. And I kind of wandered off not too far away by myself and sat down, and I was I still am a meditator, and just sat down for what I thought was a brief period of time. But anyway, when I wandered back to where everyone was, they weren't there anymore. So not really knowing where I was or where we were going to be going or any of that. Anyway, I just started walking towards where I thought the bus was. And coming across the moor was Paul, because they had a search party out looking for me. Obviously, they had gotten on the bus. We had our little numbering routine, and number whatever I was, never said anything. So, yeah, that was basically how we met. The most embarrassing part of that was getting back on the bus and everybody kind of looking and clapping, and oh my God. But that's basically how we met.
Oh, well, we love a bit of anarchy in Britain, so I think that would be well appreciated, you getting back on the bus late. But yeah, welcome to you both.
So, I would just say that I've retired as editor of Time and Mind now.
I mean, Paul, you both do so much that, you're still producing absolutely beautiful books as well. I've got quite a number of your books that I'm surrounded by at the moment. And I used this one recently. Lay Hunter's Companion. We went off on a little adventure. Is this taking you back now? I know this is sort of one of the early ones. I love this
Very
book.
early.
Yeah, it's a fabulous book. It's a fabulous book. I've got this one here, which is utterly beautiful. The Sacred Place.
That's a better one, yes.
That's a really lovely one. Oh, I love Lay Hunters. Of course, one of the Earthlight's Revelation.
Yeah.
That one that came after the classic, and this fabulous one here. The Powers of Ancient and Sacred Places. I've also got your fairy paths, which I love as well, and that helped me a lot with my research. And, I've been into your research since the 90s, and when I was, first beginning my project, these are the books that I turn to, because I am very interested, as you are, in the energy of the landscape. So do you think you could just introduce your research, the research that you have both been looking at over these decades, and where it's brought you to at the moment? Healing has helped me many times in my life when I'd reached a point where something needed to change. In 2005, I trained with Martin Brofman to learn the body mirror system of healing, which was life-changing for me. It's based on the idea that the parts of your body that don't work well reflect the parts of your life that don't work well, and about which you have tension in your consciousness. The understanding is that tension is stress, and stress causes symptoms. In a distance healing or in-person session, I move up the chakras, returning each one to wholeness using a colour map. During the process, I see images and situations, I hear words or receive impressions that tell me something about what caused the tension in that person's life. The feedback at the end of the session is a really big part of the healing. If you're interested in a chakra healing session, you can contact me at scarletofthefae@gmail.com.
I started out with lay hunting and so on, and ran the Lay Hunter magazine journal for quite a few years. And in the course of doing that, the idea of sort of energy lines and all the rest of it, there are energies, natural energies from the earth and from the sky for that matter. But the story that had developed around lays and Alfred Watkins and so on turned out not to be true. It was a modern myth, I suppose, and I had a hell of a job explaining to people that it wasn't as we were reading it in all the books and papers, and it become sort of journalistic about ley lines and all the rest. And so I moved off into more academic areas, still researching them, but researching in a different way and from a different angle.
Okay.
And in the process, I got involved with a lot of other things like archaeoacoustics and the way light plays inside certain monuments, and also the energies inside. When talking here, I'm not talking about diaphanous energies. I'm talking about magnetism, geomagnetism, and radiation, which was the big surprise to me to find out that certain rocks, can be radioactive. And inside the Great Pyramid, everywhere. And it gave me a different perspective on things. Without losing, and I want to emphasize this, the numinous quality of sites, the quality, the weird. I've had strange, subtle personal experiences at sites, and I remember once on Dartmoor, I'd gone out there on my own, and I went to a stone row, another stone row.
Yes.
Deep in the moor, and it was a beautiful day. I put my hip flask down and set up and started photographing and looking at the site. And suddenly I got a very distinct feeling of not being welcome and of being watched. And I looked around and there was nothing more than clear all around. And I got into a panic mode out of nowhere. And so I packed everything up and left my beautiful hip flask behind. I was in such a rush to get out of there. So I started going back, try and get off the moor. It was a 2 or 3 hour walk. And this white pony appeared on the skyline, pure white. And it never came any closer than the skyline, but it saw me off the moor. Oh. And I really thought, I'll better get out of here. Yeah. So I've had that sort of experience and spiritual experiences. So I've not lost that side. I've just tried to focus not on a modern myth. Most of it propagated by social media and things like that. Because I come from an era when there wasn't social media. But I spent the time, I did the looking, I've learnt, and I now do these other things rather more. And also, very big area of research has been anomalous light phenomena.
Yes.
Earth lights, as I call them. And that was very important, I think, is still a tremendous area of research that's not getting full attention at all. And I've been, in the Australian outback, I've been in Hesdalen in Norway with the light phenomena and so on, and all around, really all around the Western Hemisphere. But so that's the area. It's been very busy. Took a lot of field work, actually experiencing things, looking closely at things, and the writing is a way of keeping you going on that sort of track.
Yeah.
And so I think, I think it's 27 books now. I'm out of my mind.
But it's provided so much value to, researchers like myself, people that are interested in these areas and sort of following your work over the years. I had read about your experience there where you felt, you needed to exit fairly quickly. And that sense, I think I certainly have felt that before. And I have felt previously that feeling that you get can sometimes shift over time too, if it's somewhere that you become familiar with. Sometimes when you first enter these places, you get that response, and then over time it can develop. But you certainly do know that get out of here vibe when you feel it. There's no mistaking.
But even with places where you're familiar with, so many times, because of course on the Dragon Project, we've done a lot of work at Roll Ride. And so many times, usually it's wonderful when you go there, but then there are times when you know that there's something or reasons that you're just not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So it can be places that you're very familiar with too.
I remember a specific case of that. There was one of the volunteers for the Dragon Project was doing all-night monitoring of Roll Right. And at that time, there was a little hut there that Pauline Flick, the owner at that time, and had made. And I thought, I wonder how he's getting on. And we were going nearby, and I just dropped it on my own again at about 11 o'clock at night, pitch dark. Went into the circle, and I couldn't see the guy anywhere. So I knocked on the door. Nobody there. It was locked up, and he'd done. I thought, blimey, you're supposed to be doing a job here. Anyway, next day, I went back and he'd come back. And I left because I felt uncomfortable. It was, again, that sense of being watched. And normally, as Charla says, Roll Right's fine, sunny and fine. But on this occasion, he took on a very dark feeling. And I didn't feel welcome. When I saw the guy again the next day, I said, "Where the hell were you?" He said, I don't like to say this, but I had a very bad feeling and I didn't want to stay overnight. And he said, I left and I was quite disturbed.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just me, it was him on completely independent experiences.
Absolutely. Did you have anything set up at that time that you were recording in that area?
Yeah, we were doing all sorts of, really, I account it in that last book, Powers of Ancient. I start really there and move on. We did a lot of work. People were talking about energies, and I remember at one stone circle, this dowser guy, picking up an energy here, an energy line. And I looked up and there was a microwave tower and I think people don't know what they're picking up. There was a really good dowser, Bill Lewis, in Cornwall, and he was serious about it. He actually measured on frequency meters, and he did objective findings. And he said, I thought that those people who are talking about energies are picking up energies, but they don't know what they're picking up. And so it's a maelstrom of stuff going on.
I just wondered if at that time when you'd both experienced that, whether there was anything that you could then look at afterwards to see if there was a shift in energies there or anything that you could pick up.
Yes, sometimes let me think, magnetism in the stones changed.
Sure.
And that sometimes just for an hour.
Right.
Sometimes for a few hours. And then would go inert for months.
Yeah.
But again, I wasn't sure whether it was heterodyning from radio towers and so on.
Okay.
Anywhere in Britain, certainly anywhere in England, is covered somewhere with microwave radiation, radio signals and so on. We're a very wired country. And it happened. We didn't know why. We didn't have the resources to really follow up too much. All we were doing really was recording changes. Radiation did change, as well as magnetism. This is mainly at Rollright, because that's where we did most of the work. But we looked at other places, as I say, the King's Chamber in Egypt, the Great Pyramid, is radioactive. But it's radioactive because it's granite brought from Aswan. But the rest of the pyramid is limestone.
Right.
But it was really hopping inside the King's Chamber, and various things happened there. That was a bit odd because nobody was there. It had been empty for a while. Nobody was researching in there. The French were doing research work in the Queen's Chamber. And one thing that developed, I had Mohammed as my guide, and he did not like being in the King's Chamber. And he said, can we go? And in the end, we came back, and he said, I can't stand up very well, and my legs are going, and so are mine. They're going now for different reasons. But my knees were going, and there was an old Arab where we exited, and he offered me this little glass cup with a milky-looking liquid in it. And Mohammed said, don't touch that. And this bloke was so kind, old, wise-looking. And I said, I can't offend him. So I took it, and Mohammed went on. He went, it goes on. I drank it, thanked the guy, and came out. And then the shaking in my legs stopped. When I got out, Mohammed was flat out on the sand. He couldn't stand up. And I said, you should have drank some of that stuff, Mohammed. But that was always stuck in my mind as interesting.
The idea that he knew that there would be this kind of reaction.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. It would be great to
the other place that's very radioactive, of course, is Bath. Waters are radioactive there.
Right. Well, I mean, Jersey is made of granite. It's a granite island, and all of the all of the dolmens on Jersey are obviously made of granite. So a lot of quartz there.
Right.
Very, very powerful. Have you ever been?
Never been.
Oh, you should come.
I know of it, and there's so many places we want to go. We're going to the Arctic next, but that's another story.
Wow.
But the and I know George Nash, archaeologist, who's done a lot of work on Jersey.
I read that you'd had other experiences as well when you were out. I think it was on the moor, when actually you felt quite energized from the landscape in a way that you weren't expecting.
Incredibly. So I think it happened to you earlier on, many years prior to. But certainly we were doing some work out on one of the rows, which was a fair distance again from the road.
Down, wasn't it?
Oh, now, see, you're better with remembering the names than I am. But we were there for a pretty long time, and usually you get a bit tired afterwards. But going back to the car, it's both of us had the same experience of having just so much energy, and being able to walk quickly, and that lasted throughout the evening. Certainly, you've had experience there too.
Prior. In earlier years, I was with two companions who were the rugged type, with the backpacks, and they were traveling over the moor. And I getting out of breath. And suddenly, I don't know what it was, because it's a solid block of granite, of course, Dartmoor. It's a granite upland. And suddenly I felt charged, and I started moving without any effort. It was a weird experience. And I went by these two guys and went, well, and zoomed off. And it reminded me later of a thing that Alexandra David Neal noticed in Tibet, Lungom. And there they do Lungom trance walking, and sometimes just above the ground. I wasn't above the ground, but it was effortless. I could have been sitting in an armchair, and I was really motoring. And that is not normal for me. And it was extraordinary experience. And I think it's all to do with the energization the radiation gives. And I remember reading in Baring Gould's account of Dartmoor, he interviewed a doctor who was the regular doctor for Dartmoor Prison.
Oh, yes.
And he said, the inmates were healthier than they should have been. He said, considering the gruel, the food they had, he said they were really healthy.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
There's a whole area there that needs research by medical people, but of course they won't look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I know very little about this, but in terms of, us as human beings, we are, I understand, electromagnetic beings, and we are interacting with everything around us. And I'm sure you, Charla, know more about this than me as well, about how we are affected, how our energy centers, that some people call them chakras, how that land could then potentially bring us into balance in some way in our own energy body. Do you think that's what happened there?
Well, quite possibly. We lived in Cornwall for a while, in Penzance, and we lived, a house was, a lot of the walls in the house were granite. And of course, the thing is, in the old houses too, even though you might have your windows shut, there's still air seeping through all of the time, which in a way is really good, because the problems occurred when people started putting in central heating and things like that, and having windows that were really sealed up in a way, so you didn't have that airflow, and it wasn't as healthy.
We have to have monitors put on the wall.
That's right, because the granite would be concentrated in a way that it wasn't when you had the airflow. So definitely the environment is going to make a difference. And yes, as you say, I mean, we're beings of the planet, and so of course we're going to be interacting.
And also sort of cosmic radiation causes northern lights and things. You see that. And I remember one account given of a very powerful aurora display over, I think, was it the Shetland Islands or one of the northern islands? And the writer said, weird things happened during this strong display. That crockery would split in half. Door latches would move like poltergeist.
Yeah.
And he said it was an extraordinary thing. And when the lights, the cosmic radiation eased off a bit, then these phenomena stopped happening. So there's a full range of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds very intense. I can imagine. Now,
so, sorry, the more we did, the less we know. So it's an old adage, but it was true.
Absolutely. So. No, it's so true, isn't it? It really is. It just brings more questions to the surface and other rabbit holes to go down, really, doesn't it?
Yes,
and
it's true.
Yeah. Now, I know one thing in common that we have also is that you had a first-hand experience and together, which makes it really interesting. So this is a multiple witness sighting.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little about that, please? Because you were on a research trip in Ireland, weren't you, together? And this was back in, was it the 2000?
Let me unpack that, because the book that we were field researching for, was Fairy Paths and Death Roads, and whatever is it called. Yes. 2003 that came out.
Right.
And I got to tell you, I can't quite remember the exact date we had our encounter, but it would have been about 2000, the year 2000 or 1999, because we did 2 lots of field research for the book in Ireland. We did it a lot of other places as well. And what we had done initially, we went to University College Dublin, because they've got a record of all the, it was called, at least one way it was called, was the school project, where universities sent out packs or whatever to schools and asking the kids to talk to the oldest members of their family. And this is in the 1930s.
Amazing.
And when they gave back their stories from old granddad or grandma or whoever. They collated them, picked out the more interesting looking ones, and sent them out and recorded them on phonographs and so on. And we went over 1 million sheets of paper in their records, a lot of it in Gaelic.
Yeah.
All we wanted to know was what were they saying back then about fairy paths, because the theme of the book was to be, and it was, the idea of spirit ways through the landscape, all sorts, different types, everything from dream time tracks and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And so we collected what we could, and it was infuriatingly vague, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
People say, oh, well, there was a fairy path there, you know. Oh, where's it start? Where's it end? You know. Anyway, so we collected quite a bit. We had a couple, did we, translated from Gaelic for us.
Yeah.
So we tried to get this as raw verbatim accounts of the lore to do with fairies. We had a lot of help from the Irish storyteller Eddie Lenahan, and he came with us on a number of the trips.
Yeah.
And
Right.
a whole range of stuff, and I go into it in fairy paths and spirit roads. And what is it, spirit? You've got the book there.
I
haven't
do
you?
have the
And
book.
actually, there
It's
were two different
upstairs,
versions,
unless
two
it's
different titles.
Two editions.
Yeah.
might
two
actually be
editions.
down here.
Mm.
Yeah, because the later one you changed the name, didn't you?
They
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, the publisher.
Oh, they
Publishers.
did. Okay.
Yeah.
Probably
Anyway,
looking
so
around.
you don't have
Yeah.
much control once your book gets out in the hands of these people. Anyway, another story. So armed with this information, we started going around places where there was believed to have been fairy paths, and we tried to actually track them geographically as far as you could.
Mm.
It was fascinating. And we heard stories from people, you know, sometimes quite remote farmsteads upon on Kerry Hills and so on, and lovely people, really lovely people.
Yeah.
But some of the accounts they told us were sort of generic fairy tales. A few were experiences. They were recounting things they remembered, encounters, and they were of a different tone altogether to the generic fairy stories. Like on your podcasts, you know, these are real experiences, and they don't fit the neat idea of what a fairy should be. Anyway, so that was good. And so on this occasion, we'd already got a hint that these things could be real. There was a woman who saw, that's another story. But these were just hints we got during the field work. And on this occasion, we were traveling from Clare to County Mayo. And I damned well don't know quite where it was, but we were on a country road. It was overcast, mid-afternoon, and I was driving along, and the narrow little country lane, and we came to a road junction, and it was a Y junction. A good old island, at least back then. You didn't always get a signpost. Which way do we go now? Do we get to Cluna, I think it was, in Mayo, where old Bill's house, remember?
I remember.
Anyway, so that's where we were going. That's where we had this account from the folklore. And didn't know really which way to go. And so you try and visualize this. The road is going in a Y like this. In between the two roads was low grass. In the background, about, I don't know, 100 yards, was standard trees. And so we decided to go, well, I decided wandering, walking speed now in the car, and going to a right path. And just as we started to do that, this thing appeared on the grass. And we both saw it once, didn't we?
Yeah, that was the freaky bit. And it was really towards the verge,
Yeah, near the
closer to the
road.
verge than in back
Right.
to the grass. And it was just one of those things where I've seen things in the past, I have to say, when we've been coming home late at night from London or whatever. And, you know, chalk it up. I mean, I don't know. It could be imagination, whatever. But so I was used to that. But what freaked me was as I was looking at this, Paul said something too. And it was this realization that, for me anyway, that he saw it as well. And so that kind of put it into
And it hung around,
place.
I say, for a while, but it mustn't have been more.
No, we were still traveling.
Yeah, but very slow.
Mhm.
But what that did was, as we moved, you could see it was fully three-dimensional. It's about 3 foot tall, 2.5, yeah, about 3 foot. And it was, we have since described it like a bollard with head and shoulders. And it was just covered everywhere, all over, with a tight green texture, like tight foliage. I don't want to say it was foliage, but it looked like it, and it was all over this thing. I couldn't see arms and legs. We checked each of us.
That's why the bollard shape. There was, it wasn't.
It could have been a thing standing,
but you couldn't really tell.
We couldn't tell.
Yeah.
And as we went slowly around, like absolutely shocked, because you've got no reference for something like this.
Of course.
It started to turn to look at us. It gave me the creeps. And you saw eyes, didn't you?
I saw eyes following us, and it was just so freaky. But it didn't scare me or anything. It was just trying to compute it in my head, really.
The eyes were dark inset in amongst all this stuff. And then it just went. Wasn't there anymore. And, you know, on movies and that, things appearing. This just was not there first, and then it was. And then suddenly it wasn't. And obviously we pulled up a few moments. You said, what did you say when it went like that?
Well, when I realized, well, I won't say what I said, but anyway.
Express shock, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I had an experience, and it turns out that Charla did not, that I just felt the thing was full of foreboding.
Okay.
I didn't like it at all. What I should have done, hey, I'm the writer, I told Devereux I'm going to these things. I was scared, I'll be quite honest, and I just didn't like the feel of this thing. I should have stopped, got out, and walked over to the spot, see, conjure it up again or whatever it was. Not lightly. I didn't want to be anywhere near that thing. And maybe it was the Irish in me, I don't know. And in fact, since I'd figured out what that was, because then we shot off. I put that down on accelerator and we got out of there. But what I think my reaction was if the background to what I was thinking was that cultures have folklore and traditions and so on, and that fairy lore was based on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But we had just been getting the inkling on this particular field trip that there was more to it, that people were describing, as I said, memories.
Yes.
And I thought, well, what did I think? I still had to get out. You've always got to get out of these things as long as you don't see them.
Exactly.
But when you see them, as you know, as we certainly know now, there's nowhere else to go. It happened. It's there.
Or was there.
Or was there. But it was a real transient but concrete objective experience. And this is what gets you tell people, and a lot of them don't believe it. Certainly more academically minded people we've spoken to about it. And what I realized, they're doing what I was doing. I'd assumed there was the alternative, that it was the mind or something. And it's not. It's really there. It's really happening, and you can't escape from that fact. And it's a form of intellectual escapism to not believe this stuff, I think, in the academe and the academic world and various others. I mean, people who know us, who get on, and I think they're tolerating us when we talk about this, which is not that often. I've only started going on about it in recent years. And I think that's what was happening to me. I was trying to adjust to the fact that I can't get out of this. This is a real thing, not just some diaphanous idea or a folklore, not a folklore.
But well, the thing is, I mean, I was just shocked that we both saw the same thing, to be quite honest. And that's what was going through my mind and thinking, of other things. It didn't frighten me. I wasn't running to get at it. I mean, obviously Paul was driving, so but equally, I should have said, let's go back, let's just look. And I never did. It never dawned on me to, because my head was just in a different place. And of course, we both very much regretted that for different reasons.
Yeah.
And to not even record where this wide thing was.
Exactly.
Junction.
But that's the thing. I mean, I think when people hear, when you have had these experiences, if you thought that something like that was going to happen, and I was the same as you, I thought this was impossible as well. And when people talked to me about having seen things, well, one woman did, and I knew she was being serious. I could not get my head around it, and I didn't think it was possible either. So you can see where people are coming from when they just can't get their heads around it, because it just blows everything out the water, really, doesn't it? Everything that we thought we knew about the world. But the thing is, you'd think, oh, some people say, if I saw a fairy, I would do this and I would do that. But it's not like that. When it happens, the way that you think that you would respond, you just don't respond that way. You don't take a note of the place, or you don't, you've the video stalled there a little. You're back. Yeah, it's just not how you would expect things to turn out. But do you think that your research then took a turn after that?
Ontological shock is what it is.
Yes.
Yes and no. I was always very open to stuff, and I was researching what I was researching. The acoustics was fairly clear of this sort of phenomenon. It was fascinating. The study of sound at ancient sites, but it's not weird, it's not woo-woo in the way that damn thing was. So mostly it didn't affect me personally too much, except there's knowledge I now have. There's something going on in this world, in this reality, even if you only visit it occasionally, that we don't know about. And you can't get people to know about it. You can't get universities or anybody to
you're just breaking up a little bit there.
Fit it into a world picture.
You were just saying that you can't get universities to look at it.
Not seriously. You can get individuals, and you get little groups of individuals.
Yeah.
But it's not a cultural reassessment of things. And also, what the secret they're telling us, these things, the expressing, that we don't know, that we are ignorant of, and God knows what it might open up.
Exactly.
What it also does, and what made me aware, that the concern we have with ecological matters now, and climate change and all the rest, these things are in it.
Yes.
And
so are we. We just have never really acknowledged it that way.
These are our companions, as it were, we know nothing about officially. In an open sense, and it's frustrating, and it annoys me. I'm sorry, it annoys the hell out of me that these things aren't properly studied at a real cultural level, because there's stuff there we need to know, and we need to know quick.
I think part of the problem too with that is that you also get a lot of people on a bandwagon who hear a couple of things and suddenly they go into things and start putting information out that's coming from them and not really from the reality of what might be going on, for whatever reason they might have to do that, whether they want to become popular or for whatever reason. And of course, that then puts a lot of this in not
Doesn't
a very
help.
good light.
Yeah.
It dilutes,
Which is a shame.
it dilutes impact. If you go on YouTube and look at videos of fairies,
Mm-hmm.
it's unbelievable the number of videos on there. It's absolute rubbish, most of
I
it.
know.
I've really gone through it. Maybe the two I've seen that look like they're
Authentic.
catching. And
Yeah.
this is something we're working on in the Dragon Project, in that so far, about entities generally we're looking at, as a lot of people are now. It's becoming quite popular. And are these things really out there? Are they? A lot of people say it's a mental thing. Well, it may be partially, but this thing was on the grass. It was three-dimensional, and we could drive around it looking like that.
Yeah.
And it's not good enough to come up with it. And that is a way of intellectual escapism, I think.
To just have the door closed and not look at it. This is the trouble. Yeah. I mean, even for myself, this summer I had quite an eye-opener, because with my experience, the same as you, Charla, you're sort of looking at it and just amazed, and I guess possibly sort of just processing what was happening, but not frightened. It was lovely, but and he looked very different. I mean, yours sounds as if it was a bit more weird to look at, whereas I was looking at an open face that was, and I say open because he just had lovely.
You said, what was interesting me about your account though, was it a very lined face.
Oh yeah, just ancient skin. Just there was no flat skin. It was just all completely, wrinkled. But he still had a lovely face, nice little cheeks and twinkly eyes. But where was I going with that? Yes, so it was something that I saw, though I was with my husband. He didn't see it, although he was looking the other way. It was me that had turned round, perhaps because it was already looking at me and I had a sense to look. But I went back to that location this summer and chatted with a woman. I just released this last week, actually. She saw a being that sounds like the being I saw, and she saw it at the same place.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting because, okay, a lot of the time we're working with these theories that whatever it is, we meet the divine, if you want to call it in some way, and then we are bringing up all of our knowledge, beliefs, experiences, and we are turning that into something that we can then process. That's what the theory says. But of course, for yourselves, you wouldn't have been expecting to see something like that.
Although I suppose, sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, and then for me and this woman to see exactly the same, the way she described it was the same being as I saw. That's on different occasions.
Yeah, it's a valid indication, yeah. A lot of people say, well, what were you doing? You were searching fairy paths for your book. So you were primed, and they escape into that.
Yeah.
Well, it's true, we were. But we were looking for anything then. I just trying to find the way,
This is it.
And then when it appeared, it's quite different.
Exactly.
And another example, we're following this fairy path, as was, because we mapped them on, once we got the accounts from these papers in the, that's the cat.
Yeah, it's okay.
He doesn't like closed doors when he's on the other side of them.
Yeah, he's got something
if we
to
let
say.
him in, he'll go mad.
Just sit on the keyboard.
Yeah, so on this occasion, there was a what they call a fairy fort in Ireland, a rath, and this path went through an ancient crossroads that had traditions, and on its way, it cut through the end of a little farmstead, the very end. And when we got there, the guy was out and they were building a new extension on, but the old part was still there. And we said, has anybody had any experiences in this place? He said, well, my wife has. They were now separated, weren't they? My wife has, but I think it's because she was poorly. She's not very well. Anyway, she lives down in the village now, and I've never seen anything. We found her, we found the place, and we spoke to her, and she was quite open about it. She said, yeah. She said, I got up about 3 a.m. I wasn't feeling very well, but she said suddenly, while she was sitting there, these small figures came in through one wall, went straight across the end of the room, which was the end of this building, exactly where our line had gone up, and out through the other side. Didn't pay any attention to her. And she told her husband, and he said, oh, it's because you're having an hallucination or something. And that's how these things become palatable for people.
Yeah.
And that was before we had our experience. And that started like, these people are seeing things. Somebody else had contact, that priest guy who said he had seen the gentry, or the tall figures, in the dark, across the road ages ago. And I asked one of our people in the countryside, country folk, well, this was before our experience again. Why don't we see fairies and things? And he said, 2 reasons. You don't walk across the countryside enough. You're going by too fast in your cars, and you're not seeing. He said, I know, I think he actually pointed to a field. There was a track across that we used to go along. Can't even see it now. He said, so you're not in the contact that we had in those days. My father, being Irish, he used to walk miles between places. If they went for a game of cards, they'd all walk over the fields and whatever, in the dark, late at night after a few. But we don't, it's true. We don't have. And my other sense I got, you were talking earlier, prior to this, about whether if we had noticed if the phenomena was getting more. I think it's getting less.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, things were happening much more. This experience we're talking to you about now, I don't know about you, but it was my last really strong, weird, anomalous experience. I'm talking 20 years. And my sense is, I had this earlier, that I think the fairies, whatever these entities are, and I don't think they're what they appear, but anyway, that's another story. I think they've been moving away from areas of urbanization. And that's why Ireland, on the very edge of the Atlantic, that area is a good place. It's sort of congregated to some extent there, I think. So that's my sense. And I think this invisible country of theirs is slowly disappearing. And I think it's disappearing with the decline of the ecological environment. Let's start with. There are other things happening, but
do you think that that's why we're having these experiences? I mean, put it this way, if I hadn't seen what I had seen, I probably wouldn't be doing this now. I mean, I hadn't intended to do anything like this. It was through a series of, it's always coincidences, isn't it? I went to University of Bristol to study ritual in the landscape. And actually it was Ronald Hutton, with no idea of my experience. I hadn't mentioned it to him. It was him that said, why don't you look at medieval Irish fairies? Then joined the Folklore Society, got asked to write a book about fairies. Again, not something that I was, looking to. And now here I am doing this. It's and talking to people about it. So hopefully that people feel it's okay to talk about it. Same as yourself, you've got an incredible, lot of research throughout your career. You've come at it from an entirely academic perspective, albeit extremely open-minded and pioneering. And then you've come and had this experience, and now you are talking about it. Do you think that this is no coincidence, and the reason that we have had these experiences is so that we can get people maybe talking about this again and actually taking it seriously. Do you think that might be an aspect of why we had those experiences in the first place? Because I certainly didn't understand why I did back then.
I
don't necessarily think so. I think, again, just my own feeling, that people have these experiences, those that have these experiences are somehow in some way open to them, whether, not that they're necessarily going to, because we certainly weren't going to even think that we experienced something like that, but that there's some kind of openness that whatever these things are, to put it in human terms, they feel comfortable with exposing themselves.
Right.
Which they wouldn't necessarily to the general public. And unfortunately, things are going in such a way, I mean, with climate change denial and everything that goes along with that, that I don't think those would be the type of people that would have these kind of experiences. You see what I mean?
Well, they wouldn't put themselves in situations where they might see them.
Too, yes. But even if they did.
But I don't think it's purposeful in quite that way. Their thing. I think it's. I mean, I have to face the fact for 20 years or thereabouts, 15 years or so, I didn't talk about it. I only barely mention it in the Fairy Paths book, just in passing. And it's only in the last few years I feel I really want to talk about this.
Yeah.
And woe betide anybody who doesn't believe me. I just want to get this out there, put it on the table, as one of many quite authentic accounts of actual encounters, and it's. I just feel the need to do it personally now that I didn't quite have that push to do earlier on, and I think in that sense it has changed me a little bit. But also, I'm half Irish and I shoot my mouth off, so it's one of those things.
Maybe that's where I get it from then as well, being my dad being Irish and my mother's.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, dad's from Cork, and our family must go right back because Hickey is an old Irish name. The Gaelic is O'Hishida. Hickey is the anglicised version, which interestingly means healer. Which is
that is interesting.
Yeah. We were apparently the healers to the kings of Munster. We probably knew our herbs or some kind of techniques to help the kings of Munster. And then my mother's family are from Enniskillen. And we went up there recently and had the same experience as you. We were off on a genealogical research trip with my sister, my daughter, and my mum, which was really nice. And the people there just were so amazingly helpful and friendly. Go and knock on this fella's house. He'll tell you, oh, he knows something, and adding people into like a chat on Facebook so that we could get some answers. Just amazing people. So I do think it's interesting you saying about these fairy beings or whatever they are, moving away from centres maybe in, say, Britain and being more in places like Ireland. And I guess you could count places like Cornwall and a lot of the southwest of England, and perhaps even places like Scotland, where the folklore has always been really strong and continued anyway. Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think that is the message then, that do you think there is a message? And if so, you think that that's an ecological wake up call for people?
I think it's just something that's happening. I don't think anybody anywhere or anything anywhere is putting a message out.
Okay.
I think it's just something, if anything, we're picking up that there's a message here, if you like. I don't think so. I don't think that gets to my mind a little bit like a divinity thing. Is somebody has a purpose. Everybody thinks they've got a purpose. We might not have any purposes at all. We don't want to think that, but who knows? I don't think it's in that sense so directly that, but I think there's a reaction going on, and it's the last chance saloon. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I suppose there's a message, but not in that concrete sense of there being. We need to find out what they are, why they are, uh, and what it might mean for the world. I mean, there's something here that needs explication in an open way, and before it's too late, in my view, my humble view.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. And of course, I had read about your experience in the foreword to Jack Hunter's Greening the Paranormal, which is a great book if people are interested to look at our relationship with the environment in a new way, and how important that is. So, and
Or a very
where
old
can,
way.
yeah, that's right. Where can people get hold of your books and research?
Well, my last book is available online with Amazon or any of the other online booksellers. Yeah,
This one? The Powers of Ancient and Sacred Places.
That's readily available.
Great book.
Some of the others have been around so long that the earlier books are out of print, and now people are not reading books anyway. Everything's on screen.
I think people like to still have books. I love having books. I don't know anyone that doesn't like having books.
I tell you, it's just the tailors who work as field researchers on the Dragon Project. They're moving house at the moment, and it's a bad time to be moving house. And they're going around lots of houses, to see if they want to buy them.
Oh yeah.
And they're looking around, and the thing that struck them, people don't have bookshelves anymore. They're devoid of books. And people read magazines and things like that. But
or online ebooks and things. I mean, you come in our house and every room has books.
Too many.
Yeah,
literally too many. That's right.
And I'm talking to Bob Rickard the other week. Fortune Times founder, editor in the day. And he said nobody's reading books anymore. And he said he's collecting up and he's boxing his up and going to an archive, unfortunately in Sweden, because he couldn't find the equivalent. Because, at a certain age, you think, what are we going to do with our libraries and things? Yeah. You haven't got to that yet, but you will. We all do. It's inevitable. And he says, these books, he said, are like fossils now. He said, and that's why they have to be recorded. People will always read books, but it's not a common cultural thing anymore. And if they are, it's some sort of pulp fiction thing, for holidays perhaps. A book to read on the beach, some paperback, get by in a airport or something.
The majority of people, of course, obviously there are those that are dedicated and into research and things, but talking about the wider general population.
Thing. Let's say it's not gone, but it's getting there, and it's declining.
That's
because
so
of all the, there's electronic books and all the rest of it.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to have an electronic device to access them. It just makes accessibility so much less, doesn't it? We need books. We need physical. And they're just
there's something very important about having a physical book and the smell of it, the feel of it.
Yeah, that's right. And they hold memories.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, book knowledge is a deeper, more rounded knowledge that you get, rather than the flash fast
splitting. Yeah,
it's a different level.
It is.
So I think just the media landscape has changed so much. People don't have a lot of time. They're working hard, and book reading, as per se, book reading is tending to decline, which is very sad.
Yeah, I hope there's a resurge in interest, because I mean, even my little one, my youngest one, she loves her books. She's got books everywhere and loves reading through them. So hopefully the next generations will still hold books in high regard, physical books. Because the thing is, if you're reading in bed, the backlight I mean, I don't have any devices to read in bed, but aside from your phone, which is a really bad habit, but reading from a book in bed just helps your eyes relax, and then it takes you into such a lovely sleep. Very different to looking at kind of a screen.
Well, you use different parts of your brain, you know, on a book, a page, holding this book, whatever, and something that, yes, beams into your eyes is a different experience just up here.
Absolutely.
Very much so. But people can connect with your books, can buy your books on, don't you have a website that people can buy them from directly?
Yes. What we found, though, with foreign readers, people abroad, the cost of posting things now.
We've actually, Paul has a website, and yes, all of the books that are currently in print are available on that. But it is true, we've actually put up a notice on the website because, of course, now with the Brexit, and we won't go there, but the cost that people are having to pay on duty for books going to France, you know, Germany. And forget about the States. So we have put on a thing saying, look, you can get his books from any reputable. We're not fans of Amazon, but the point is that they can get them from there, and they're not going to be charged these crazy prices because they have places within the countries.
Yeah, the website is pauldevereux.co.uk.
Lovely. I'll flash that up. And Abe Books is really good as well. I always try and look on Abe.
Well, you see, they've actually been bought by Amazon.
Oh, you're kidding.
No.
Oh, for goodness sake. Then where is there to go?
But they still seem to have their own sort of integrity as far as I can see.
That's the problem, isn't it? It's
conglomerates.
Abe Books, all those sort of books you can get online and should have that last one, perhaps a few of the others, I don't know. How about yours?
Mine's the same thing. They're available online or through Paul's website. The only difference, obviously, on Paul's website, the books get signed because we send them from here.
Yes,
but
so
but otherwise, I mean, from a cost perspective, it's really ridiculous, unfortunately.
It is. And, you know, your books, Charla, this is what we need right now when the world has just gone completely crazy, and we need meditation and visualization and aromatherapy, amazing for bath times and, you know, mental health, emotional health, well-being, all of that, need that.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Absolutely. People need to slow down, and that's part of what it's about. And by slowing down, you get more inward, and it's wonderful to do the slowing down out in nature too, because then you're connecting and letting yourself open in a different way.
I mean, your last book,
Your Meditation Journey, over 30 exercises and visualizations to guide you on the path to inner peace and self-discovery, by Charla Devereux.
Has all sorts of nature-related meditations and visualizations and so on.
Yeah, and it's come full circle because that's how you met.
Well, that's true.
Meditating outside can lead you to your soulmate.
All kinds of things.
And all kinds
now
of
we're
adventures
older and
ensue.
wiser.
Theoretically. Anyway. Older parts true,
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. It's been really wonderful to speak to you both. I really appreciate you joining me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.